There is this misconception that the more traditional a society is, the less it gives women rights or the less it focuses on the rights of women. Now, there is this article that was written by one Langton Prendergast Walsh, who was the first vice consul of British Somaliland. And he tells us about a unique aspect of the Somali society when it came to the rights of women. And we are going to read that part. Now, this article is part of a collection of articles that were published by the Journal of the Royal Geographical Society. And these are articles that were written between 1830 and 1890. Now, Prendergast was posted in British Somaliland very early on. In fact, he was the first senior-most British official to be sent to Somaliland in 1884. And he took over from the Egyptians who were in Berbera during that time. Now, in this article, he tells us, of course, about his experience staying in British Somaliland, Berbera in particular. And he tells us about different things, setting up the governance structures and things like that. But he also tells us about the society, how the society was organized. Now, of course, one of the things you can talk about when you discuss any society is, of course, marriage and how marriage is procured and how it is handled. And of course, he tells us about the divorces and the marriage and the documentation of marriage in Berbera during this time. And then he tells us about this interesting aspect of the society where it used to be the case that actually Somalis will fight, and the reason why they will fight is the rights of women or a particular woman in particular. For example, when it seems like that woman was not getting justice, then it could even cause a battle actually. And this is what he writes. I often discuss matrimonial questions with the Gazette of Aden and other Muslim controversialists, and they all agree that a wife was the best and most reliable agent a man will have to look after his interest and his livestock. Now he's talking about before he arrived at Berbera, he used to stay at Aden. And it seems like he's suggesting, even when he was at Aden, he used to have these conversations with religious leaders of pertaining particular questions of the society, including marriage, of course. Then he continues, suppose a man has camels and sheep which must necessarily be grazed in different localities. He is generally allowed by Mohammedan law to marry a second or even a third wife, as if he has lost easy and immediate access to one of his two wives, he must have another one to cook for him and conduct house in which he resides. Now, there's another part in this article where he brings up a very interesting point about marrying more than one wives, and it's an argument he makes that I've never come across it anywhere. And the argument he makes is that the Muslims are allowed to have more than one wife because of Christianity or because of Christians. And this is how the argument goes. He says that during the early days of Islam, there were many Christians around, we could say maybe in the Arabian Peninsula. And Muhammad, the Prophet, had an issue with the way that Christians lived their lives. And in particular, he did not like the fact that he observed, we could say that during that time, Christians used to have these very many women. And it's only the bishop or the pastor who will have one wife. The rest of men were basically having all these women all over the place without any structure. And he did not like that. And he instructed the followers of Islam that that's not the best way to live, that we should have a limit to how many wives one can have. And that's how the number 4 limit came about. At least that's what Prendergast writes in this article as the explanation that was given to him when he was in Aden and also in Berbera. Now he continues here. Questions such as the dower, maintenance, and a place of habitation of a wife during the life and after the death of her husband, and a wife's right to remarry without forfeiture of property derived from a deceased husband, frequently lead to quarrels. In Somaliland especially, if a wife has been unjustly treated, divorced, or deprived of her dowry, and the wife is a woman of importance, the tribe will take up arms and support her case and thus start a tribal feud. So he says in Somaliland in particular, it used to be the case that if people felt that a woman has been treated wrongly, she has not been given justice, she's been wronged in the process of, say, maybe divorce or inheritance, then the men in our clan will rise up would take arms sometimes and actually go to fight over that because they wanted to see that there was justice and fairness in the way that that woman was treated. Now, this is a society of the late 19th century. We are talking 1880s here. And when you look back, or the way we look back today into that society, sometimes we think, or there is this narrative that has been sold, that women have always been treated so badly in all societies around the world. The more traditional the society is, the worse the women are treated, and nobody really cared about the rights of women. But here is an article written in 1885. It's a very long time ago, we could say, about a society that we might think that that's a sort of society you would expect that women are treated so badly. But in this society, people were willing, and these are men, were willing to go to war to defend a woman, and not just defending a woman, but the idea was her rights had to be respected, her rights had to be given, that she needed to be treated justly. Now, I need to point out something else that Prendergast writes. I could have decided to do a different video for this, but I think I should just mention it here because it's a very short thing that he mentions. And he talks about the tolerance of the Somali society and generally the Muslim on being led by somebody who is not a Muslim. This is also one of those things that I did not even imagine it was possible. My assumption has always been that Muslims will always demand that the person who is ruling over them is a Muslim. But Prendergast says that it was his observation that the Muslim did not have any problem with having somebody who is not a Muslim being a ruler over them. But there were conditions, and that's what he writes here. He says, "It is my experience that it is much easier for any ruler, no matter what his religion may be, to govern a Mohammedan country if he shows a certain respect for the local ulema or ulema. Ulema, of course, is, we could say, religious thought or scholars, teachers of religion, we could say. The latter are invariably inclined to support authority, especially if the administrator is tolerant and does not himself proselytize or assist others to do so." So the point is, this ruler, if he's not Muslim, he should not try to convert people from Islam to some other religious teaching, and he should not encourage or support others to do that. If he does not do that, then the Muslim community have really no problem with that person being their ruler, really. They don't have any issue with that. Now, this article, as I said, is part of a collection of articles that were published by the Journal of the Royal Geographical Society of London between 1830 and 1890. And it is a book. The collection is a book, The Somalis and Their Lands, and you can get this book on Amazon. Check the pinned comment, check the description box, and if you are watching on TikTok, check the bio up there. You will get a link that will take you to the place where you can get this copy or a copy for yourself. Those are my random thoughts.